Once upon a time, you could ask the simple question of how much should I tip my delivery driver? Fast forward to nowadays, you cannot ask that question without somebody getting mad and frustrated about the answer. And because people enjoy getting mad about the answer, it definitely means we have to talk about it more. That's right, people. I'm talking about the tipping culture. Last week on the Dash with Ash, I talked about just how much I believe these gig companies are truly not in favor of our customers. But here's another one for you. This whole tipping culture conversation has only become more of a popular demand of a conversation ever since these gig companies became involved. And that's why something has to be said about this whole new dynamic of tipping culture. You see, personally speaking, it's not uncommon for me to receive the question about tipping. Being the fact that my YouTube channel is nothing but this whole gig economy, and being a delivery driver, it's a pretty common question I definitely get from customers. The sad part is, a lot of the times I rather not even answer. And the reason for this is the conflicts that some people might have to the difference of opinions is not worth my time being spent to listen to it. There is a difference of opinion, and everybody has their right to their own opinion. But when opinions turn into conflicts because people just want to bash one another because of the opinion, that's when I turn the other way and say I'm not going to talk about it. But the truth is, since this is my podcast and this is a conversation that I want to talk about, today I'm going to talk more about this. And so here's the first question I'm definitely going to answer. Do I believe that the tipping culture has become completely out of hands? Oh yeah, definitely speaking, yes. Tipping culture is way out of lines compared to what it used to be in the past. Now, let me cycle back to what I grew up with and how I learned about tipping along the way. Growing up with a father who made a rather good income for us growing up, it was not uncommon for us to not have takeout food. Rather it was pizza, Benny's chicken, or our favorite was a nice Chinese takeout night. Either way, we had it a lot growing up. Generally speaking, when it came to my parents tipping the delivery driver, I noticed a trend that if it was just pizza, my mother would say, here's a $2 or $3 tip, it's just pizza. But my father, on the other hand, if the quality was there more, he would tip more. And generally speaking, that might have bugged my mother, but she let it go. If the takeout place was our favorite chicken spot or Chinese food that happened to cost more, the tip would always be offered between $5 to $7 at that time. And by at that time, I'm talking more about 15 years ago. And yes, I just realized saying 15 years ago truly makes me feel old. Now, going to a sit-down restaurant was always treated differently. My dad would give a minimum of a 15% tip, but that was not involved with fast food. Because with fast food, you would be going into the counter, you would be standing, you would be waiting, and you would be taking it back to your seat. So because of that, no tip was given. But if you had catered service to your table, like a waitress, for example, that, of course, involved a minimum of a 15% tip. And just like tipping a delivery driver at the door, for my dad, the best service got the best reward. Now, unfortunately speaking, asking my parents what they would do for food delivery apps and tipping is not something I can do. My mother does not use these apps, and my father passed away less than 3 months ago. So because of this, I'm just going to go about now and say what I think of tipping based on what I grew up with. I think tipping is an optional service. You don't have to tip, but it's nice to tip. And I also believe that the better you do, the more you should receive. That does not apply to looks. Although if you look hot and you give great service, I mean, that's a good combo in my books. But that's not my ultimate decision. I will always decide of the quality of the service first. Have I ever taken away any tip on these food apps? No. I'll dock your survey before I hit your tip for bad service. Because either way, with these food delivery services, I know you're the one going to get it. I know you're the one waiting in line. And if I go back on based on what I was grown up with, when my dad went to McDonald's, he didn't tip because he was doing the work. But fast forward to now, I'm pretty confident he would say it. Well, I much rather tip somebody to go to the restaurant and get that food for me. Now, a common question is, should I tip percentage for a delivery driver or should I tip based on dollars? Well, here's my opinion on this subject. As a delivery driver, I don't look at either. I can't see your bill percentage in advance, and I don't know how many dollars your order is unless I snoop through the order after I accepted it. So my fair answer in my mind, and this is my opinion and you're more than entitled to yours, is if the minimum order I'm going to accept from Uber Eats or DoorDash for about 20 minutes of my time is $8, well, the minimum most of these companies still pay me is $3. So if I do a quick math, $3 from the company and $5 from my customer means a minimum of $8 I'm going to be making, well then I'm okay with a $5 tip. Rather it's pizza, fast food, or anything in between. Where my answer changes as a delivery driver is if you know you live super far. Because my statement just there was for roughly 20 minutes of my time. But if you live farther, that is going to bump up that 20 minutes automatically. And that means I have to use more gas. So for places where people are farther, yeah, I would of course want a higher tip. But that's not because I'm trying to be greedy. That's because the companies are screwing up so badly against our clients that if they don't tip me decently, I don't make enough money. The truth is, this whole tipping culture situation is only a situation because these companies like Uber Eats and DoorDash force customers to have to pay. The proper solution is these companies need to pay us more. Don't make my base offer have to be only $3. Make it more worthy so that my customers don't have to pay because, surprise, surprise, they don't even talk about service fees. Dan C. and his lovely wife Samantha both talked about this whole tipping culture thing on one of his more recent episodes on his podcast called Catching Up with the Commands. On the episode that I'm referring to, Dan talks strongly about one subject that I understand completely because I talked about it in my last episode. It's the service fees that get charged to the customers. From what I hear across the board, a lot of people would not have issues tipping if the service fees plus delivery fees weren't so high, and part of that at least went to the driver so that they knew their driver was taken care of. In some locations, companies like Uber or DoorDash only pay their driver $2, but they'll charge you $4 in service fees. A lot of this is blindsiding to the customers who think we're getting paid a percentage of it, and we're not. And then this gets adding into the whole conversation of the tipping culture, because then customers get mad and say, don't go after us, go after your companies. But as independent contractors, we don't have the rights to much. At the end of the day, I will always say this to my customers: tip the way you want, and tip according to your needs or lifestyle or what you grew up with. And for myself as the driver, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna take that order that is best to my needs. Sometimes the cheaper orders work out better because they're shorter distances. And sometimes I'll take those far orders for a few dollars more, even if it's not actually in my favor. Tipping culture has gotten completely out of hands because of these companies. But the unfortunate part is the companies don't care if they put the customers and the drivers at war, because they're the ones making the most profit. Next week on the Dash with Ash, I'm going to be talking about full-time and part-time deliveries. I'll catch you lovelies in the next episode.